Shir Chayav, Shir Tzur, Ezra Orbach. Okay, Hashem give their neshama aliyah. Okay, ready? We got a big topic today. Okay? Today, we got a big topic. We're going to talk about self-confidence. Okay? This class is also in the schut of the success of Dana ben Tova Basha and Reina Malka ben Tova Basha. Okay? So self-confidence is one of the most important things you need to have. I can't begin to describe the amount of problems that I hear from people, and it's mostly due to this lack of self-confidence across the board. Whether it's a Shalom Bayit problem, whether it's a Parnasa problem, whether it's a Zivug problem, across the board, it's a lack of self-confidence. And I think Rabbi Abraham Twerski had it right. Rabbi Abraham Twerski he's been in the addiction business for maybe 30, 40 years. He's a top notch in this field, and he said it very simple. He says low self-esteem. He made a very, very bold statement. He says low self-esteem is the root of all psychological disorders. Is the root of all psychological disorders. For him to say that, and he's not coming from left field. He's a doctor that's met many, many people. He's pretty accurate. And he says he's been criticized for making such a broad generalization, but he stands on ground. He says some cases it might be medically, but most of the cases, he says 90% is all due to lack of self-confidence. He says there are people who are bright, personable, capable, resourceful, but they don't see themselves this way. Right? Would anybody look at a pile of trash and expect a beautiful rose to come out? That's what's going on. Would you look at a pile of trash and expect the rose to come out? That's exactly what's going on today. So we need to realize that all this negative self-talk and all this is really what is it doing this to us. And what happens is when you get to the state, your ego becomes very fragile. So anybody that says anything to you, you're going to snap right out. You're going to snap. So low self-esteem means a very fragile ego. So you're always going to be playing defense. You're always going to be putting up walls. You're always going to be defending yourself when you don't have to. If you have self-confidence, you don't need to defend yourself. People who don't have self-confidence are always defending themselves, always making blames, always calling others, making excuses. So that's really what we need to figure out tonight. What strategies we can use to fix this, and really to get out of this, because otherwise you're not going to have any life. So what's the problem? What's the problem with this? It's also the root of self-confidence comes from the word confidere, which is a Latin word means intense trust. The word confidere means intense trust in yourself. Ask yourself, do you have intense trust in yourself? That's where the word confidence. If a person doesn't trust himself, eventually there's no confidence, because you have to rely on yourself when you're in the worst positions in your life. So where do we get this from the Torah? Very simple. How do we know this? When the Jewish people, right, when the spies came back from Eretz Yisrael, they gave the report that they saw giants, and what happened? They said they were grasshoppers in their eyes. So in their eyes, that means the Jews believed that they were grasshoppers. So what happens? Our enemies make us look. That means if a person thinks he's a grasshopper, everybody else is going to look like him as a grasshopper. So that's why whatever your person thinks of himself, that's what he's really sending the signal to the world. And that's why it's such a dangerous thing, not having self-confidence. Because then all of a sudden you're going to be thinking that everybody's talking about you and everybody's doing this. Meanwhile, it's you. This is what you're sending out to the world. That's what we really have to do. This. And then it begins. It says once they began to be what? To be grasshoppers. Then there was opinions that they thought they were ants. So you could see it gets worse and worse. Self-confidence does not get better. It just gets worse and worse if a person does not take a major stance on it. So today we're going to talk about how to really fix it. So we know the word doubt is Gematria Amalek. Doubt is the most dangerous word you can use. When you doubt yourself, when you don't trust yourself, what are you doing? You're doubting yourself. And this is the one thing that Hashem told us we must destroy. We must destroy Amalek. We must destroy the inner doubt inside of us. Gematria 240 Amalek, and doubt is 240. This is every time you doubt yourself, you're feeding Amalek. So a lot of people I speak to, they say, I should have done this. I should have done this. I should have done this. Whenever you use the word should, it's a very bad word to use. Because you're thinking it's going to automatically bring you to negative energy and negative memories. Because you say, well, why aren't you doing it? Because you're lazy. Why aren't you doing it? Because you're not taking action on your life. So we want to replace the shoulds with goods. Tony Robbins obviously says the famous word, a person shoulds all over himself. Every time he says should, you're shoulding all over yourself. So we want to replace the shoulds with coulds. We don't want to say that word should. Should is not in your vocabulary anymore. The new word is, I could do it. Should is not a good word. So we definitely want to take that word. Even the simple language that we use, we want to be able to tweak. Even simple language, because eventually your subconscious says, every time a guy says, I'm going to try to do this, it means he's not doing it. I should do this, it means he's not doing it. He feels bad. So it's really, these are really signals in your subconscious, means you're not really doing it. Okay? So remember, life gets better by change, not by chance. By change, not by chance. It just doesn't get better. We have to become better, and that's what we're trying to say. So let's talk about what Reb Nachman says about Emunah. Okay? One of the most important emunas is emunah in oneself. So we have to have, there's 4 levels of emunah. There's an emunah in Hashem, there's emunah in the tzaddikim, there's emunah in the Torah, and there's emunah in ourselves. Okay? So Reb Nachman says here that when a person's faith is lacking, when a person has his faith is lacking in his life, he's going to work very, very hard for absolutely everything. Everything's going to be an obstacle for him. Work, sivug, shalom bayit, it's all going to be an obstacle for you. Why? Because you're questioning yourself all the time. You're always questioning yourself. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I go to this Chabad? Should I go to this synagogue? Should I go out with this guy? When you're always questioning yourself, the thoughts, basically, what do? They drag you down. They drag you down. So Rav Nachman says that. He says, what do you mean by that? He says, he told Rav Nassan, his major student, and he told him, yeah, you have faith in God, but you don't have faith in yourself. You don't have faith in yourself. And Rav Nachman says in lesson 5 that the word emunah comes from the word ne'emanim, which means place. So he says here, when there's no faith, person has no faith in himself, what happens? Guess what? Imagine you had a beautiful garden, but when you don't have faith, the rain doesn't come. You can have a beautiful garden, you can have beautiful potential in your life, but when a person has no emunah, has no faith, God doesn't send the rain. So without rain, what are you going to do there? So that's why he says in lesson 5, he said it very clearly. He said that the reason why a person, his faith is the most important of it all. Each person must search with himself to seek whether his faith is complete. It means you have to search. You got to dig deep. So you're going to tell me, yeah, I have a lot of confidence. I have a lot of faith in myself. But every time every time somebody says something to you, you're screaming right back. That doesn't mean you have faith. That doesn't mean you have confidence. You understand? Just you have to. One thing is to think it, and one thing is to dig deep. Once you really, really dig deep, you realize, why am I not taking on this business? I'm afraid I'm going to fall. What are people going to say about me? You understand? So these are really signs that you don't have. You don't have it. So he's saying here, for due to lack of faith, terrible afflictions arise against the person. If a person is meant to actualize, you are born in this world with a gift that you are meant to actualize. You are born in the image of God. You are born to have a specific thing, to do a specific thing in your life, and when you don't do that specific thing, that's where everything goes wrong. I know, for example, thank God, I'm a good speaker. I'm not a good writer. So I take the good things that I have, and I put all my energy into it. You can't be good at everything, you understand? But the bottom line is you have to dig deep and find out what you're good at, and you got to actualize, because that's when you're really going to feel alive. When you really dig deep and find out what is your nikuda, what is your gift that God gave you. Maybe you could do chesed, maybe it's a person to open up a clothing company. Whatever it is in your job, in your life that you got a gift, you got to take advantage of it. You got to take advantage of it, because if you don't take advantage of this, your whole life you're going to always be questioning, and at the end of the day, there you go. That's the reason for all the psychological disorders. So it's a very, very dangerous thing. Okay? So that's the first thing. Remember, you are born in the image of God. God did not create you with something. If He created you in the image of God, He created you great. If He created you great, you can absolutely do everything. It's just what's stopping you, it's the walls. I remember when I had those walls. I remember I had many walls, and I couldn't get out of this funk until you said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to cross the sea. Everybody's got a sea in their life that they got to cross. And so what? You fail. You get back right up. Rav Nachman fell 100 times. But if you're worried about falling, you're worried about drowning into the ocean, God clearly told you, stop praying. Move. That means cross the ocean. That means there's a time where a guy, he can pray all day long, but he's got to take some massive action. You got to take some massive action. Just talking about it, just praying about it, you got to move. God will bless you on everything that you do. In everything that you do. That means you have to physically do it. You got to move. There's a time to move, and there's a time to sit. So this is Abraham Maslow is one of the head of positive psychology. He came out with this concept, and it's really true. What happens is over time, when you make certain decisions, a person can either make a decision to grow into comfort or to go into growth. Every time you make a decision, you're either going into growth or you're going into comfort. Every single day. Every decision you usually make, you're going into comfort or you're going into growth. So what happens is over time, when a person says he's going to do something and he doesn't, guess what? He's not going to trust himself. If I say I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock, I wake up at 9, I can't rely on myself anymore. Over time, that becomes a big problem because then you don't trust yourself. Then you won't tackle anything because you look how you failed. Imagine if you had a mailman. The guy says, "Listen, I'm picking up UPS at 5 o'clock." The guy comes at 7:30. The next day he does the same thing. What are you going to think of that guy? What are you going to think of that guy? You can't trust this guy. He doesn't come on time. He doesn't say what he's going to do. So how do we build a little momentum? Say what you're going to do. Start with small victories. I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Do it. Because you can have all the problems in the past. Oh, my mother did this. We're going to talk about blaming a little later into the class. But the minute you take action, the minute you say, you know what? I said I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do it. All of a sudden, you started building momentum. But when you say something and you don't do it, over time, you start hating yourself. And when you start hating yourself, you don't have self-confidence. You can go to a shrink, you can go to a psychologist, you can take a pill, but nothing's going to change until you say something and you do it, and you continue to build momentum. Until you do that, that's when your life changes. The day you say something, you take some action to empower yourself. The day you take some action to say, I'm going to do it, and you follow through it, that's the beginning of self-confidence. Guess what? Imagine a guy saying, you know what? I'm going to eat better tomorrow. No junk food tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? He gets up, he's eating junk food. What is he going to think of himself? What is he going to think of himself for over a long time? Think about it. Think about what are you going to think? You're going to think terrible of yourself. And then you're going to give up on everything. Remember, what is frustration? What is really frustration? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Why are people frustrated? Think about what's the number one reason for frustration. You're doing the same exact thing and you expect a different result. It's insanity. So the key is really start saying, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Small. Don't create crazy goals that you know you're not going to hit. Create small goals. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock. I'm going to do meditation for 10 minutes. You do it, check one. It's the beginning of your self-confidence build. People think it's something much, much, much more bigger than it is. No, it's taking small actions, practical small actions on your level. If you say you're going to call 10 clients tomorrow, call 10 clients tomorrow. And then from this, you're able to build little by little. You're going to build momentum. Okay? So that's what. Without actually taking that kind of action, we can talk here till tomorrow. It'll be called the Lighthouse, the Black House. What name would it be? It means nothing until you take action tomorrow and you say tomorrow, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it. That's the beginning. So I want to make that very clear because I don't believe in just positive talking. I believe in action. That means tomorrow somebody has something that's bothering them, whether it's their weight, whether it's they want to have a job opportunity, whether it's something in their life they know that's bothering them that they're not taking that chance on. And you need to tell yourself tomorrow, I'm going to be, this is it. Because the only way to build momentum and build self-confidence is small victories. Over time, creates momentum, and then, guess what? When you start trusting yourself, then it's very easy to do something else. You believe in yourself. You're not unreliable anymore. So remember, every time you make a decision, you go into comfort or you go into growth. It's up to you. The ball's in your court. Ball's in your court. Okay? So another beautiful thing. spoke about the Breslov Center the other day. You have 24 hours. Everybody's got 24 hours. You have the same 24 hours, I have the same 24 hours. What we do with our 24 hours makes a decision on your life. What do you do with your 24 hours? Your 24 hours are the most important things to you. What do you do with your 24 hours? When you take a grip on your 24 hours, that's your life changes. What do you do with your 24 hours? That's a question the person has to ask himself. People maybe think I'm going to give them a big speech on self-confidence. No, I'm going to get to the basics. You got 24 hours. The difference between a successful person and a not successful person is this guy uses his 24 hours much better than you do. This guy's empowering himself all day long. This guy's entertaining himself all day long. Until we realize and we start saying, you know what, at the end of the day, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do at the end of my 24 hours? Once you start realizing you have 24 hours in the day, when I realized that, I said to myself, I have 24 hours in the day. I started waking up at Hatzot. Because I said, I'm going to take advantage of my 24 hours. If I want to get to a place where I want to get to, I'm going to need to do more with my 24 hours. Because it's not going to happen with my schedule. That means if some people's schedule makes it impossible for success. Some of your 24-hour schedules that I've seen people have, I ask them, okay, what do you do all day? I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Then your schedule will not allow you to have success. It's physically impossible. So once we become aware of what am I doing, write down your 24 hours. Write down exactly what you're doing with your 24 hours. Now you put a goal, and now you're putting pressure on yourself to say, listen, I got to get to work. Otherwise, I'm going to be in the pits. I'm going to be in the pits. Take advantage of your 24 hours. Very important. I know it's so obvious, but you don't think about it. You don't think about it. And I realized that I studied a lot of people. Successful people wake up earlier. Successful people wake up before the sun. They start meditating before the sun. They start talking to God. Successful people already are getting 2-3 hours on the day before the average guy. Some people wake up like it's an accident. This is going to kill your self-confidence. It's going to kill it when you wake up at a certain hour and you're already behind on the day. So this is the beginning of a new, you got to be alive. That means I got to take advantage of my 24 hours. That's all I got. I don't care about tomorrow. I don't care about yesterday. I don't care what happened yesterday with my 24 hours. Because in order to get through all this, we have to first say thank you for wherever we are today. Thank you. Say thank you to Hashem. Because we don't want to have remorse. We don't want to have regret. Oh, what did I do in my life? What happened? Forget the past. The past is the past. I'm worried about my 24 hours that's ahead of me. And what am I doing to squeeze out my 24 hours? Usually at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm usually done. I got 5 hours already on the day. 5 o'clock, I already have 5 hours on the day by 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock, I already have 5 hours. Worked out, gave a class, prayed, meditation, learned Torah. That's it. That's my hours. So my day is very long. People say, how do you have time? How do you have time? I do a lot more than my 24 hours than you do. That's how I have time. When you wake up at 9 o'clock, you go on Instagram, you fool around, next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock, you roll into work at Starbucks, and you're sitting there, by 12 o'clock, maybe you wake up, your self-confidence is going to be garbage. So what are you doing with your 24 hours? It's a very powerful message. It's a very simple message, but that's the only way things happen. Once you start developing little habits of some self-esteem, saying what you're going to do, and then from them, we're able to create. So many people waste time blaming everybody. Blaming this person, blaming that person. Everybody's blaming. No, it's the economy. No, it's the weather. No, it's the this. No, I can't. I'm going to wait for Trump to be president. Then I'm going to get to work. You're blaming too many people. You're blaming too many people. Blaming is the one way. When you blame people, it's the number one way to stay in a problem. You want a segula to stay in a problem? Very simple. Just blame. That I guarantee you. You will not leave your problem. I know people are blaming. I said, when are you going to stop blaming the world? When are you going to stop blaming the world for everything? Blaming is the number one way to stay in a problem. Think about how many things have you been blaming? I remember 4 or 5 years ago when I was in my situation, all day long. Blaming this attorney, blaming, did absolutely nothing for me. We got to get rid of the blame, and we got to say, you know what? I'm not getting locked in the problem. So now you have to associate in your brain, before you blame maybe 45 minutes on something. Blaming means I'm staying in the problem. That's the key, to become aware of what you're thinking about so you're able to make that switch. You're able to make that switch. There's a great story, Rabbi Shlomo Einhorn, he gave a great example. And he says, there's a Gemara Avodah Zarah, I believe 17. There was a famous rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hordunus. Let me get the story to be accurate. And he basically said, hold on, give me a second. There's a beautiful Gemara, and he gave a beautiful example. Right, in Gemara Avodah Zarah, it says there was a story about Eliezer ben Hordunus. He went to all the prostitutes in the world. All the prostitutes in the world to find out who's the best prostitute. At the end of the day, he got to the last prostitute, and she said, you know what? And she fluctuated. And she says, just how this gas went, guess what? You're never going to do tshuva. She told him just like that, the prostitute said, just like the gas passed, that I just passed gas, you're never going to be able to do tshuva. So what did Rabbi Eliezer ben Hordunus say? He flipped out. What did he do? He went to the mountains and the hills, right? And he requested for mercy. What did the mountains request? Say, listen, we can't help you. We got our own problems. Then he went to the heavens and the earth, requested for mercy. And what did they say? Listen, we can't help you. Right? Then he went to the stars and constellations and asked them, before we request mercy, please request mercy. He says, listen, we can't help you. So what did he do at the end of the day when he realized he couldn't get help? He cried out to God, and then he was saved. There was a Baal Kol, when he cried out to God, when he realized nobody else can help him, he cried out to God, and what happened? They said there's a Baal Kol, as the Eliezer ben Hordunus, he's going to get Olam Haba. So he gave a beautiful Shlomo Einhorn, he gave a beautiful analogy. He says, first, what does a person do? He blames what? His surroundings. The mountains and the mountains. First he blames the economy, the weather, why a person's going through in his life. Then he blames what? He blames the sun and the moon. He blames his parents. He blames his parents because the sun and the moon are compared to a person's parent. No, it's my father, my childhood. That's why I am the way I am today. What does he do at the end? He blames the DNA. Listen, I was born with this DNA. So blaming is the number one way to stay in the problem. We have to eliminate all kinds of blaming. Blaming is going to do nothing to you but destroy your self-confidence, and it's not going to get you anywhere. Remember, emunah in ourselves means God put me in this situation for a reason. According to your struggle is the reward that a person gets. According to the struggle is the reward a person gets. Okay? So let's discuss a couple more things. So we are technically, if a person, we are born, what are the needs of us? We have a need to grow. We are theological beings. That means we are born to have targets. So if we look at the scientific, how does a person feel good? When a person has a seder, when a person has a goal, when a person has a target that he has to hit, that already, what does it do? It releases serotonin. So every time you come closer to the target, you actually become happier. That's part of that's part of the process. See, everybody's waiting for the end. It's not what happens at the end. It's who you become. It's who you become. Wow, I can't believe I was able to talk in front of 200. I went to Uman. I never figured when I went to Uman. I said, listen, I talk to people, but I'm going to sit there and go talk to Uman in front of these rabbis. What am I going to tell them? They probably know the Gemara back and forth. So at the end of the day, thank God, it was a great speech. You felt good. You accomplished something. You felt good. Serotonin is produced in your body when you're at a goal. We are meant to hit targets. But you can't hit a target that's not there. Can you? Can you hit a target that's not there? That means if you don't have a target in your life to hit, how could you hit it? You can't. You need goals. You need targets. Depressed people have no goals. Depressed people have no goals. We need to have goals. To build self-confidence, the only way to build confidence is to be able to have small victories over time. And these little victories over time will end up in momentum. And once we get momentum, then we break out. Then you have that breakout session. I would never be able to go speak in front of 30, 40 people, drug addicts and addiction. I could speak to Jews, I could speak to Torah, but that's a different level. There's no way, if I didn't get momentum in these classes, that I would ever even think about doing that. I said, no way. I'm not there yet. Only through momentum, you could say, you know what? Why not? I did this. Why can't I do that? And it's very powerful. Because when you have momentum in your life, then you can absolutely do anything that you want to do. It's a very, very empowering thing. So, if we realize we're meant to hit targets, ask yourself, what targets do you have? You can't live life with no targets. It's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. With no goals, with no targets, you can't live life like that. You can't just live life on living for other people. You have to have targets. What is my short-term goals? What are my spiritual goals? What are my goals? You know, one thing about Yosef HaTzadik, once he saw the vision of where he was going to be, he saw the vision. He already saw his brothers bowing down to him. His vision was so crystal clear that he knew he was the king. So when a person has a goal, like Yosef HaTzadik had, guess what happens? Whether he got sold to the Ishmaelites, whether he got sold here, Potiphar, etc., etc., etc. He didn't care, because his goal was so clear. That means when you wake up with such a clear goal, you're hitting the goal. It didn't make a difference to him what happened to him, whether he went to jail, whether he went to this. That's the level where we got to get to. We got to get to the level where our goals are so clear and so perfect, and having goals on how to build the Munah in ourselves. Because you know what? If you realize what happened when we said we were grasshoppers, when we cried for no reason. When we cried for no reason, every single day in the 9th of Av, we are crying in the Beit HaMikdash. Because what did the Gemara says? Because you cried for no reason, I'm going to give you a reason to cry for. That's the scary part about this. That means if a person's crying for no reason, he's going to have a reason to cry for. He's going to have a reason to cry for. And I see this in addiction, I see this in everything. If they believe that they had the potential to be able to fight an addiction, if they believed in themselves through past experiences, they would be able to fight their addictions. So lack of self-confidence means, I'm going to give up. I'm going to give up. And that's that worry. You don't trust yourself. So remember, we need to be able to take care of our 24 hours. And we need to take our 24 hours, and we need to get a grip on these 24 hours. That means you should write down tomorrow your calendar. What are you doing in your 24 hours? You can't just wake up by accident. What time do you wake up? I don't know. Whenever my body wakes up. No. That doesn't work out. You can't have that life and try to have any kind of success. So we're going to give you guys some practical tools on how to work this. Okay? There's another great article in the Baal Shem Tov that a guy approached. There's a famous story that there was 4 or 5 walls. There was the castle. It was one of the Baal Shem Tov stories. There was 4 or 5 walls getting to the castle. So what happens? There was 100 men. What happens? The first 100 men went in there. What happened? They saw the wall. They left. They couldn't handle it. Another 50 men broke the second wall until the third wall got broken. And at the end of the day, one guy survived. So they asked him, how are you able to go through the wall of ice? How are you able to call the wall of fire? How are you able to call this wall? He says, there is no walls. I told myself there is no walls. What do? We put up walls. When every time we see a little out of the comfort zone, let's just put up a wall. It's easy. You see, it's very comfortable in a wall. Because you can justify it. You can justify it. You can justify a person's success by putting himself in a wall. So the Baal Shem Tov is a beautiful story. At the end of the day, when you say there's no walls, that's when you attack. So you gotta stop putting walls. You gotta get a grip of the 24 hours, and you gotta say what you're gonna say. When you say something, do it. Trust yourself. Remember, confidere works by trusting oneself. I have to believe. I believe. I say what I'm going to say. I'm going to do. Okay, so let's talk about a couple nice. I got this from a couple books on psychology. Great tips on how to get momentum. Okay, so anytime we have to be focused on making decisions, not sacrifices. Remember, when we make a decision, when tomorrow you make a decision. Friday we're going to talk about Pigam Brit. We're going to talk about the dangers of wasting seed, that unfortunately most of the youth is trapped in this. And I see people's lives completely destroyed by this. So I'm going to give everybody Friday a 40-day challenge to do something. And if a person's able to fight that challenge, that's when his life changes. So our decision is going to be, you know what? I'm going to suffer. Either way, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer either by taking the challenge, or you're going to suffer with ADHD, no shidduch, no parnasa. Either way, you're going to have to deal with some pain. Now you have to decide what pain's better. Is it short-term pain or the long-term pain? Either way in life, we have to understand something. We're going to have to deal with pain regardless in anything we do. Whether it's up to you whether you want to take that pain and get a reward for it at the end, or that pain will always be there. That pain will always be there. Like regret. Regret is something that will always be there if a person doesn't think. So a person needs to understand, you want success, figure out the price and pay for it. Very simple. That means everything has a price. There's a thing called, we spoke about it the other day, called the tranquility tax. Called the tranquility tax. That means if you want tranquility in your life, there's a tax. What do you have to do to have tranquility? You're going to probably have to meditate. You're going to probably have to watch what you're thinking about every day. You're going to probably have to be very guardful of your emotions. It's a tax. That means tranquility doesn't just come to you. You need to make it happen. Same thing with anything. Any kind of thing that you want, make a decision and pay for it. So what do we do now? Let's, for example, I had a few guys that they started a couple challenges and to build their self-confidence, and they fell. So what should you say to yourself when you do fall? Well, say tomorrow, you know what, you had 5 good days of self-confidence, and next thing you know, the seventh day you fell. What are you supposed to say to yourself? That's what we're getting knocked out on. People get 7 good days, they get 1 day. It's not for me. It's physically impossible in anything in life to go up straight. You have to go up, make a low, and go up again. There's no straight line to success. You have to go up, you're going to have that fall. Because the purpose of the fall is to get back up. Very simple. Even in Judaism, even in anything in life, don't expect obstacles. Expect obstacles. Don't expect, you know what, I have a goal tomorrow, but don't expect, if I don't hit it on the first shot, I'm done. No, you got to expect obstacles. There's this concept called whoop. That means what's your wish, right? What's your outcome, right? Expect the obstacle and then plan. That means I already realize when I'm about to do something, I said, you know what, I want to lose 15 pounds tomorrow. I have to already estimate that I'm going to have those days that I'm going to probably gain a pound or 2. I estimated it already. So when it happens, you don't freak out. So you have to start planning your obstacles. Just like you plan your wish, plan your obstacle too. Because your ego's telling you can't fall. It's impossible. So what do you say when you fall? Either you win, or you learn. That's your attitude. Anytime I have a day that whatever I wanted didn't go my direction, okay, today I learned. Either you win or you learn. That's your attitude. You can't say, I lost, I'm a loser. It's not going to work out. No. Either you win or you learn. That's the attitude. What did you do today? Did you win or did you learn? That's better speech than saying, I can't take it, I'm done. Life is too tough. That we don't want to say. That's going to register in our subconscious. We need to say, I had a great learning day today. How was your day? I had a character building day today. Today was a character building day today. That's what you have to say to yourself. Very simple. These little words that you say to yourself makes a big difference because your body reacts to what you say to yourself. Believe it or not. Because if you tell yourself a certain negative self-speech enough, your body's going to react negative to it. And then you're going to be drowned out. So we have this concept, either you win or you learn. Mike Tyson says something. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Which is true. We all have plans, but you're going to get punched in the face. The key is get up, go again. Go again. There's nothing wrong with it. I've had times where I started anything that I wanted, even his bodhidut, I would get up and I would go back to sleep 2 minutes after. I said, today I can't do it. Today I can't do it. Doesn't mean I'm never going to do it. Just today. Today there was too much of resistance that day. So you're going to have some of those resistance you're going to have. Another great concept that I love. What would you want to be in 5 years? Pretend yourself, who would you want to be in 5 years? Think about it. Who would you want to be in 5 years? I practice this all the time. Right? Who would you want to be? You would probably want to open up a business. You probably want to get married. How would you feel like that in 5 years? So what do? Start acting like it now. Whoever you would want to be in 5 years, Start acting like that person right now. Start talking like that person. Start acting like that person. Don't wait till the 5 years to come. Because then maybe it'll never come. But if you start acting like it now, whatever your vision is in your life of what you would want to be in 5 years, be your best friend. Who do I want to be in 5 years? And start acting it like it now. How would you act if you lost 30 pounds? How would you walk around? How would you eat? If in 5 years you would say, you know what? I'm probably going to lose 40, 50 pounds. How would you eat? You would probably change your diet. Correct? Yes. So start getting into the future. That's how we're able to start already having goals. The first thing is you got to feel it. You got to feel it. You got to feel it. So great concept. Start acting it. Become your best friend, not your biggest enemy. Your best friend says what? Speaks nice things to you. Your enemy does what? Speaks negative speech. Remember, Rav Nachman says that before a person is going to get any kind of spiritual awakening, he's going to have a lot of haters. Specifically, person's family. They're going to drag him down. They're going to say, listen, well, you've been depressed for 20 years. Where are you going? You think it's going to work now? A lot of haters, even in one's family. What are you doing exercising now? Stay with me in the misery. Come, it's comfortable here in the misery. It's comfort in the comfort zone. So you have to be careful that even in a person's own family, the minute he's going to start talking to God, he might be called crazy. Now, look what my husband's doing. He's going outside talking to God. He really lost his mind. Look what Breslov did to him. This is a very common thing that I hear. Look what my husband's doing. So I said, why are you talking about your husband like that? He's trying to better himself. What, he's going to talk to a tree? What did you give him? So don't expect this happening. When I started waking up early, my wife thought I was crazy. So what are you doing? Come back. This is common. This is common. Don't expect this to be easy. Expecting it to be easy is not realistic. You're going to get hate from your own family. Unfortunately, Rav Nachman says, even from your own family, they're going to try to drag you down. And there's a reason for it, because whatever resistance you're having is because that's the reward after it. That's the reward after it. So whatever the resistance you have is because the resistance is built to what? To strengthen your yearning. Person's resistance is to be able to strengthen his yearning. So that's when you have self-confidence, you don't really care what people say about you. I never forget when I started in Breslov, people told me I was in a cult. People told me I've lost my mind. Come to synagogue with us. What are you doing there, Breslov? What are you doing? What are you doing? What this is supposed to do? How many people? And I said, listen, you're miserable. I'm not going to learn from you. Most people that are telling you not to do things, they themselves are very miserable. Nobody that has high standards in life will ever knock you down. Miserable people love company. As they says, misery loves company. So remember, get the haters out. You gotta have like Yosef Atzadik. He had a vision, yet attack the vision. Forget about everybody else. Forget about the weather. Forget about everything. A person has to attack the vision. So we also have to, it's very important that a person has to also remember past experiences where he succeeded. It's very important. You've had success in part of your life, in the past, in certain areas of your life. To have self-confidence, you have to say, wow, I did it back then, I can do it now. You have to remember when you've succeeded, whether it's passing law school. Whatever you succeeded in the past, you want to draw that energy. When you felt alive back then, and you want to be able to use that momentum for today. Remember, this is not going to be easy. Because once you break out, you'll become a new person. You'll talk differently. People will say, what happened to you? What happened to you? Well, you look so much different. That's the koach of emunah. So remember, you're going to get plenty of obstacles. Plenty of obstacles. But like I said before, you also have to get the minimum things right. You got to get the food diet. You got to get the food right. Because you can't have momentum, willpower, if every single time you're eating junk food and your sugar level goes up and you crash down. That's not going to build momentum for you. Your eating habits, Rav Nachman says in Lesson 60, your eating habits will put you to sleep. I tell people in addiction, you're eating junk food, it's poison. You can either have medicine or poison, but you can't have both. That means your diet sometimes will not allow you to have self-confidence. Your diet will not allow you to have self-confidence. So we got to tweak. We really got to tweak. We got to tweak all these things. Okay? Last thing we're going to talk about. Great concept. Great concept, this last concept. So he's saying, we'll talk about this and another concept. It's also, you have to understand something. Having self-confidence is also not just about money. It's not just about, I have self-confidence, look how much money I make. No, it's also being able to control your emotions. That means Hashem created us with a what? With certain 13 midot. He has 13 midot. So when a person is patient, when he uses his erech apayim, that will also, when a person uses his own midot, for example, I have somebody ready to scream at me, and I know I would normally, my old self, what would he do? He would scream right back. So when a person is able to hold back his anger and hold back his patience, that itself also builds self-confidence. Because you're going to say, listen, I'm a new person. I don't get emotionally tied to these things. Don't major in minor things, as Tony Robbins says. I don't major in minor things. That was my old person. The old guy used to, every little thing was a problem. I used to major in minor things. I used to talk about problems forever. Also, part of that is being able to go into your emotions and being able to discipline. That's another way. Because you can't have self-confidence and be a hothead in your office. I always say, you got to become a human being before a spiritual being. Very important. People tell me, I want spirituality. I want to get closer to God. I said, first become a human being. You can't become a spiritual being before you become first the person has to become a human being before a spiritual being. Sometimes people do it the other way around. You can't become a spiritual being if you're not a human being. If you're a thief at work, if you're constantly, lashon hara all day long, you can't get connected to God like that. Okay. So last step we're going to say is this. Every single, you have to bring in. This is a great concept. There's a bridge. You are on this side of the bridge. On the other side of the bridge is your potential. There's one little bridge inside in the middle, and that's called fear. Fear is the little bridge that's stopping over from you crossing from here to here. That means you have to get here to succeed. What's stopping you? Fear bridge. So what you have to do is you have to realize that. You have to say, when I get rid of my fears, pain will set me free. Person has to say now, the pain, the fear, that will set me free. You can't let the fear stop you from where you're going. Person has to say, fear is my friend. I'm going to attack fear. How do we starve fear? We gave that great class on fear. How do we starve fear? You take action immediately. How do you give fear away? You tomorrow I'll do it. Anytime you procrastinate, what are you doing? You're giving fuel to fear. That means if I say I'll do it tomorrow, what am I avoiding? I'm avoiding crossing the fear bridge. So what am I doing? Tomorrow I'll do it. Every time you procrastinate, you have to tell yourself, the more I procrastinate, the bigger the bridge gets. You don't want to make the bridge too big because then you're never going to be able to cross it. So you do something, do it right away. Don't wait till tomorrow if you can do it today. Because every time, what are you really saying when you say, I'll open the business tomorrow. I'll call the customer tomorrow. I'll start his boat to do tomorrow. It's really fear. It's fear stopping you. Fear stopping you. So these are the things that a person really has to get. Last thing we'll talk is Shalom Bayit. If I told people that you could fix your whole Shalom Bayit, people ask me, what does Rav Nachman say about Shalom Bayit? What do you recommend for Shalom Bayit? It's very simple. Self-control and self-confidence. These are the two most important factors in your life. If a guy has self-control and self-confidence, he will be a king in his house. What happens when there's a lack of Shalom Bayit? The guy loses control. His wife says, where were you? What do you care where I was? You're not in control. You're a hothead. You're always defending yourself. Every time you defend yourself, it's really, why does a person defend himself? Because his ego is very fragile, and he always has to what? Defend himself. It's a lack of self-confidence. If a person knows who he is, your wife tells you where you are, I'll answer you in 1 minute. I don't have to respond. I'm not an animal. I can respond to you 1 minute. I was here. Is that okay? A guy says, what do you care? What do you care? He's always like cutting his wife off, or cutting, not letting her speak. Lack of self-confidence. Lack of self-confidence, because it shows, what do you have to hide? What are you always attacking? Why are you always responding like that? So the key is, the wife says something, it's okay. This is what it is. This is where I was. I answer calmly. But when you start getting into the emotions, what do you care? Why did you go? Blah, 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 blah. Then you lose your self-control, and that's the biggest turnoff for a wife. For a husband to lose her self-confidence. Because at the end of the day, what does she want? She's the moon, the husband's the sun. She needs light. But if the guy's the moon and she's the moon, then you're going to get a blackout. It's because what? The husband doesn't have self-confidence. How do you have self-confidence? You don't have to respond all the time. Calmly, not calmly. But when you don't have self-confidence, as I gave this example, a great example. Imagine if you were in a mall and you went to a very fancy store, Louis Vuitton, and the guy all of a sudden brought back merchandise. Imagine the salesman screaming at the customer. What would you think of the salesman? This guy lost his mind. You don't scream at a customer. So the wife is the customer, the husband's the salesman. The customer sometimes just wants to be heard and just says, okay, I understand, you want to complain. Sometimes you just have to hear a customer complain and say it's okay. Sometimes you just have to hear the customer complain. And then all the customer wants to do is just talk, and then you say, okay, how do we make you feel better? And then at the end of the day, everything works out. But if you're telling the customer, no, the merchandise is good, blah, 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 then you're not going to have any shalom bayit. You're going to lose your self-confidence, and that's the beginning of all psychological disorders. All right? That's the response.